Luke Cawley joins us from Romania. He is the author of The Myth of the Non-Christian. Luke, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Lorna.
You haven't always been quite so convinced about God. There was a season when you were an atheist. Tell us about that.
I was living in Bucharest, Romania at the time. I was seeing old women begging in the streets, kids living in the sewers, people without limbs begging on the street. And as I saw this day after day, I arrived at the conclusion, God can't be real. Look at this mess. And I woke up Christmas Day morning and I prayed to God, God, I don't think you're real. And if you are real, I don't think I like you on the basis of all I'm seeing around me. And I felt, what a relief. I've done away with God. I've resolved the problem of suffering by doing away with God. Well, I went out of my apartment. There was the old woman begging. There were the kids in the sewers. There were the people without limbs begging. And I realized suffering's a problem whether you believe in God or not. So it's a problem for all of us. The question isn't, doing away with God doesn't resolve the question of suffering. But if we have this conception of God framed through the person of Jesus, which is, here is a God who's suffered with you and for you and knows what it's like to be you, that actually transforms your conception of suffering.
The West is highly secularized. Os Guinness calls us a generation of cut flowers, that we may look beautiful, but we really aren't connected to our source, which was our great Christian thought heritage. How do you feel about that claim that we are a generation of cut flowers and we're not connected to spiritual truth?
One caution I would give when Oz says that kind of thing is not to attribute everything which has happened in the West to Christianity or the teachings of Jesus. Certainly there are many departures in the history of the West from what Jesus taught, histories of colonialism and empire building and exploitation of the poor, which I would not want to kind of attribute everything in our history to that. That given, I think the substantial presence of a movement inspired by the teachings and example of Jesus in the culture gives our culture a huge impulse for reform and something it can look to when it is failing. It goes back to these teachings and these values of forgiveness, compassion for the poor, entering into broken situations, not just leaving people to their brokenness. I think these are impulses which come from Christ. And the idea as well, things like democracy arose from Christian view that every human is a sinner and we can't give people unbridled power. We can't trust them with that. Every human is equal, so we need to give everybody a voice in selecting our leaders. And those kind of historic impulses towards things like democracy and civil rights and these kinds of things, I think the presence of Christianity and of a Jesus movement really can be a positive factor in the reform of society.
Luke Cawley, thank you very much.